live. Oh man, it feels like forever since I last streamed. Let's get this camera lined up here. Okay. Yeah, last week I completely forgot about the stream. I completely forgot the live stream. Just because we were all in a panic about Christmas. But things are starting to slow down, and I have a chance to start catching up on everything. So I'd figure today would be a pretty good day to get back on track, get back to normal, talking to you guys. I do like to do these live streams a lot, but I tend to forget. So how's everybody doing tonight, day after Christmas? Let's see. Just trying to get the computer up so I can see the comments. It's fairly difficult to actually go through and see all the comments on my phone when it's elevated above my head. And so when I have the computer on, I could always glance over and see what's going on. If the computer is a really old computer, it's about 8 years old. It's the one that I use for tuning. It's a Windows 7 machine, but it's really, really slow. I really need to someday I'll buy a newer one. I don't want a new one. The new ones seem to be pretty crummy, but I do want a newer laptop. So let's restart this. So, oh man, I opened up the window to the room because it started smelling like a bunch of gasoline in here, which I don't normally mind, but it was to the point where it was just giving me a massive headache. There you go. So I try to avoid giving myself a huge headache while working on carburetors. I'm having an issue, not with this one in particular, but I'm having an issue with one of my with the alcohol carb that I converted to gas. The main body, I can't seem to figure out what's wrong with it. It's running super rich on one bank, and it's a dual plane. You can see that the fuel's coming from a specific up the runners, and then the runners will pretty much just tell you if it's a left or right Venturi that's having an issue. But it's not the only carburetor that's been giving me that issue. So I went through and I checked compression. Compression checks out. I went through and checked the spark plug. Spark plug's checked out. So I mean, there's only so many things that can go wrong with the carburetor engine. And I've checked spark. At the spark is actually really good. But if I unplug the coils, when I unplug the coils while it's running, it doesn't seem to really do anything. So I'm like blowing out the spark. So let's see what's going on here. Battery, plenty of battery. All right, let's see if I can get this show on the road. Right here on this on my table, I've got a couple fun little things just hanging out here. Or I think it might be, let's see. One of these has gotta work. So Merry Christmas to both of you guys. Hope you guys had a good week. A little mini vacation for every for all of us. I got a lot of work done, but not a lot of work done on my LS on my truck. So I'm lagging. I've just been super busy with work, regular work. What is going on? Why can't I log into the what's going on? No. So weird. Yeah, if I can't, I mean, it's not detrimental. Um, yeah, it's not detrimental to the live stream if I can't see the comments, but I do tend to like being able to see everything through a second window, but it doesn't look like I'm gonna be able to. So we're just gonna wing it like this. So forget it. Just gonna shut down. Okay. Well, how did you two spend your weekend, your week? I guess because we're in the weekend right now. Today's Sunday. So wondering how most other people do it. I'm kind of weird. I spend my weekends a little different than, or my vacations. Usually my vacations just involve more work than more than anything. I'm just pretty much a workaholic at this point. That's all I pretty much do. I just work and work and work and work, which I don't mind. I do really like to work. I like to get things done, get rid of stuff that's on my to-do list. It's always fun. I'm missing one of these seals on my carburetor that's on my truck right now. I'm gonna be switching out the carburetor. I'm gonna be switching out the the 650 that's on it right now. I'm gonna put a 670 Street Avenger. I'm borrowing it from a friend of mine. It's gonna be we had tuned it for a 383 small block Chevy, and it's gonna be on my truck. It's gonna be on my truck instead. Because he blew up his motor. Since he blew up his motor, his carburetor's not doing anything. It's already all tuned up, 50cc accelerator pump. Basically, how I like to have my carburetors, he already has his set up, and it's jetted very similarly to how I like to set up my jets, which is I think it's 70 in the primary, but his uses I think it's got 72 in the secondary, so it'll be a little too rich for me. But as long as I don't get in the secondaries, it should be okay. I mean, I could just rejet the. I need to find out what's the issue with my truck. And if it's a carburetor issue, then I can go ahead and dial that in and figure out where I'm going wrong in diagnosing my truck. But if the carburetor is installed and it runs exactly the same as it did before, then it's not a carburetor issue, and I gotta start looking around. But this carburetor is gonna have none of my parts. It's basically a brand new carburetor. It only has about 1,000 miles, 1,500 miles or so, and we had replaced a couple seals on it, modified the idle feed restrictors, but aside from that, it's been pretty much original. We jetted up. I think we jetted up three sizes, 67s or 68s from the factory, and we jetted up to 70. So we'll see. Kind of upset that I haven't been able to drive my truck in the last week or so. It ran good, but it's just all of a sudden it just started dumping fuel, man. It's been a roller coaster, definitely. It's been bad, but also I haven't put in the effort to figure out what's going on. So that's also my fault. But the Daytona box, the Daytona sensors box, is in the truck right now, and it's running the truck. I can rev it up, and it'll fire. And I've checked the coils, and the coils fire really well. A nice hot spark on all 8 coils. Much different from the MSD, where only some of them would have a hot spark and the other ones wouldn't. So I know I don't have a. That's all good. So it's a matter of just diagnosing step by step. I hope there's something like when I'm diagnosing something like this, I always hope that it's something with the carburetor, because if it's something with the carburetor, we can fix it. We can go through, clean it out, measure everything, make sure everything's in good working order, fix it. But if it's not, then it's I don't even know what to do. I mean, I do. We just have to go through one by one. But I've done everything: compression test, check the spark plugs, and I don't know. Hasn't been working out. I think I'm gonna bust out my Dremel. I'm gonna do a little bit of a dremeling. What should I do? And then I got Mr. Never could figure it out. I got his carburetor all set up. Oh, my Dremel's over here. Yeah, Mr. Never could figure it out. I got his carburetor all set up, and I shipped it. I don't like doing custom carburetors because everybody's engine is different. But he won it on the giveaway that I had a couple months back, and I've been promising it to him, and I haven't been able to get all the tuning done because of the problems with the MSD 6014, and then and then now I'm having problems with overfueling, and I can't really tune anything when I'm having those kinds of issues. And then the headers that I had they're for a Camaro instead of a Silverado. And those ones, they're too big. They're really just too big. They're shaped wrong. So for the Camaro, they open up like this, but then they hit my frame rails. But in the Camaro, it works out because they open up the frame rails, but the exhaust can exit out like that. But on the trucks, or on my truck, it hits the frame. So I'm going to be switching over to some Silverado headers instead. I just don't have the extra cash right now to drop them and go purchase that. It's probably like $200 for a set of brand new headers, which isn't bad. But I still have my old set of shorties. But I really like long tube headers. I always try to install them whenever possible. I need a better phone. I can barely hear what you're saying. Maybe because I'm in the bathroom. Anyway, that's all the time I got. I gotta go play Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing New Leaf on my Nintendo 3DS XL. Good luck, have fun. Well, thank you, Mr. Calvin. I don't know who you are, but it sounds like you live a very eccentric lifestyle, and I hope Animal Crossing works out for you. I'm still playing on my computer over here, but yeah. So that's my issue right now with the Daytona box. Well, I mean, that's not fair to say. I'm not having an issue with the Daytona box. I'm having an issue with my truck. But I don't know if you guys saw in the video that I put up comparing the MSD 6014 to the what do you call it? Oh, I don't think you did actually, because I didn't put it on YouTube. It's on Instagram actually, where one video is me running the 4.8 on the MSD 6014, and then I immediately put up a different video like the next day where I pulled off the 6014 and I installed the Daytona box, and the idle was cleaner, it read cleaner, and it ran really good. Whereas the 6014 was just kind of like really sluggish. Definitely sounded like there was a dead hole somewhere. So I'm confident the Daytona is going to work out. It's just dealing with carburetor issues. Well, it's my fault because I took an alcohol carburetor and I tried to convert it to a Well, I mean, I didn't try. I did. I converted it to a gasoline carb. Um, so it's got it's the main body is virgin, right? So it's got whatever size downlink boosters. So it's got those. Then it's got a gasoline rear metering block. Then it's got an adjustable. Actually, no, I pulled off the adjustable and I put in like a stock um, the 670 front metering block. And I also um, it's using the Barry Grant plate, so that's all normal, and it is a double pumper. Checked all the linkage, and that's all fine and dandy. I lowered down the floats to see if maybe it was a float issue, maybe too much, like the level was too high and I'm dumping out. But when I checked inside the throat of the carburetor, I didn't see any fuel coming in through the top. It's all coming in from the bottom, so I'm gonna have to find out what is going on. So that's pretty unfortunate. I wonder if my microphone works correctly. Can you guys hear me okay? Calvin did say that he can barely hear me. It might be my phone. I don't know, it's like really close to my mouth though, so could be my phone. What is going on with this thing? I got 3 bars. I don't know. But yeah, it's been an eventful week for me. Trying to get a bunch of stuff done. This is let's see. Oh, green block. I was running on the 50 Demon. You can hear me, Edwin? Okay. I was just worried because I'm saying all this stuff and then nobody's actually hearing me. So yeah, so this is the block that I pulled off the 650. This is I don't know who makes this, but I have another one on my 625 Demon. That's on the Duster right now, and that's running pretty good, like really good. Same metering block, and so this is the one. They're universal, so you can run these on either the front or the back. These have power valves, so I don't try to run them in the back because then I have to run a block off for the rear. But for the Demons, it works really well because the stock metering block. Let me see if I can find a. Okay, so this is a stock Demon metering block over here, and this one I actually modified it. So if you guys look right here, I re-drilled and then I tapped and installed a set of adjustable air bleeds. But I couldn't really use it because I installed the wrong type. So I really want the set screw type that sit flush against the hole, like these, like the power valve restrictors. So yeah, if I can make them sit flush like this. So I've installed power valve restrictors on here. I have a question. I noticed you like to run the 650 version. What's your preference on the 750s? I do, yeah. So I have 2 750s, but the issue that I have with them, and it's not really an issue. There's no particular problem with the Holley 750s. It's just that I'm not running enough horsepower. I don't run sufficient RPM to require a 750. So if you go through and run regular dyno sheets, let's say for a 400 horsepower motor, you compare a 650 and a 750. The 750 might get you a little bit of horsepower up on top, but down low and everything else less than at least 4,000 down, the whole engine runs almost exactly the same. The difference is that a 750 has a larger Venturi. So let's see. This one's a 600, and then this one's a 600. So I don't know if you can actually, I don't know if you guys can actually see the difference in these Venturis. So this is a smaller Venturi for this one. So this is a 600 Venturi. I forgot the size of it. So it's significantly smaller. This one is a 650 Venturi, which is a little bit bigger. And then we've also got, oh no, I don't have it. Yeah, actually that one's on my truck. Then we have the 750 Venturi, which is even bigger than this one. So what happens when you have a bigger Venturi and you don't have annular boosters, your signal to the carburetor gets a little bit weaker. And if you're racing, that's not a big deal at all because you're up in the higher RPMs where you have plenty of signal. But if you are daily driving it, less than 2,000 RPMs, 3,000 RPMs, you really want a nice, clean, consistent, crisp signal to your carburetor so it can respond pretty seamless. We have a lot of issues with carburetors that are too big on engines because of the way the Venturis are shaped. Air tends to slow down, and you don't get that fuel running through your engine. Smaller carburetors promote more vacuum. So especially if you have a slightly bigger cam, you want to undersize the carburetor a little bit so you can retain some of that vacuum for part throttle. Like I said, if you're racing you can't really beat a 750. But I've done on my LS, I've ran a 600 and a 650 back to back, and the only thing that I noticed is that on the 650, get up the rears about 2 sizes, and then when I went from a 650 to 750, I had to jet up like one size, which is telling. And so an easy way to know if your carburetor is undersized or oversized for your application is if you, for example, you have 65 on a 600 carburetor, right? Then you upgrade to a 650. All of a sudden you notice that you need 67, 65. So what that tells you is that your engine more air in the primaries, but it didn't really need air in the secondaries, which means your cam profile is geared more toward low RPM. So when you increase carburetor and your engine wants more jet, it means the carburetor is allowing more air. But an engine can only suck in as much air as it needs. Once it reaches its capacity, it's done. Which is why when you go from a 650 to a 750, you don't really see those gains on the dyno if the engine doesn't need it. So a lot of engines are over carbureted with like a 750. 650 would be able to run it perfectly, and because it has the smaller Venturis, you're going to be able to have a much cleaner idle, higher vacuum, better response. So I think that, and I hope that answers your question, Edgar. But yeah, I tend to like the smaller carburetors. A lot of people don't, and it's understandable. They have a pretty bad rap. They're always, when somebody says, "Oh, it's a 600," well, then you just assume it's non-performing. It's not a hot rod. It's a daily driver, comparable to an Edelbrock 600. But in reality, they're really good carburetors, and nobody really likes them. But they're very versatile. You can make a 600 perform all the way to 350 horsepower and without losing much power at all. I think they did a test between a 600 and a 650. 50 did make more power all across the band, but I think peak to peak it was 15 horsepower difference on a 383 that was making about 450 horsepower. Yeah, no problem. A lot of people really like to go bigger on the carburetor because they always expect that they're going to go bigger cam, better heads, better intake. But more often than not, they just end up leaving the combination the way it is by itself. And if you can get it tuned correctly and you have it set up properly, especially if it's a 750 with down leg boosters, then it's going to run really well. A 750 with straight leg boosters probably won't run as well it'll run well at full throttle, but at part throttle, down leg boosters really perform a lot better. Neither of these are down leg. This one's a straight leg booster. This one's an annular booster. So what I want to do, and I got rid of my other 750 main body, but I have an 850 main body that I want to try. We have a 440 that we're building, and I might build that 850 carburetor, but I'm probably going to run these annular boosters. So what these do, even though this has a bigger Venturi than this one will probably flow more air than this one, because this one boosters that actually block a lot of the airflow. So what happens is that you can take larger Venturi carburetors and almost shrink them down, and because of the way this is shaped, you have more air traveling through the booster, and it actually augments your signal quite a bit. How's it going, Chevy Rel? Happy holidays. Merry Christmas to you. I don't know if you celebrate Christmas. If you do celebrate Christmas, I'm sorry. I take back my Merry Christmas. So the so the annular boosters work really well to retain large carburetors with big Venturis, big throttle bores, but also keep it very streetable, keep the response very well, but it still gives you the opportunity to flow a ton of air at higher RPMs without sacrificing drivability, or at least without sacrificing too much drivability. This one's a 575, so this is basically a 650 with four corner um, annular boosters. And the last carburetor that I had with annular boosters was my 625 Demon. That one, the one that's on the Duster, that one had down boosters in the front, and I didn't check if there were step boosters, but I know there are down leg boosters in the front, and then it had annular boosters in the back. So what I noticed when I was running it is that at the higher RPMs, annular boosters, the more you rev it, the more fuel it starts to suck. So, for example, if you have two exactly the same carburetors, let's say this was a 600 and a 600, and this has straight leg boosters, and then this has annular boosters, and they both have the same Venturi and same throttle bores, and you jet this one at 65 and you jet this one at 65, the annular booster one is going to run richer than the straight leg booster one, because the annular booster one distributes more fuel in a wider pattern than the straight leg booster does. So the straight leg booster will ask for less fuel than the annular booster will. So for the same amount of airflow, you can have the carburetor pull more fuel, because it's going to ask, when an engine asks for more fuel, it's because it wants to produce more power, right? So if your engine breathes better with the annular booster, if it gets a better signal and your engine starts leaning out, it's going to want you to add more fuel, but you're going to tend to run more richer on an annular booster than you will on a straight leg booster, because of the way it's kind of set up. So it blocks a lot of air, forcing the air to pull more fuel through it. This one, it's a smaller diameter, more room for air to go around instead of air to go through it, which is kind of what the main idea is. You can take a standard 600 like this one and go to a carburetor shop or something, and they can go ahead and install down leg step, or they can install annular boosters. But you really just want to run annular boosters on big Venturi carburetors. You don't really want to run them on a 600. The Venturi is already small as it is, and then you're going to be choking it more, which is why carburetors that have annular boosters are actually rated at less CFM, even though they make more power. It's kind of weird. Yeah, more power with less fuel, but they're also flowing less CFMs. So go figure on that one. I think it was like Hot Rod Magazine, the one that did the test back to back between down leg boosters and annular boosters. And since then, I've read the article and I haven't really seen a video on it. I wish I could. I mean, I can, but I don't have the opportunity right now to install. Have two almost identical carburetors. Right now, I have the 650 alcohol that's on my truck right now, and then I have the this 575 actually. This one. The 650 has a bigger Venturi, so it has a Venturi out of a 750, but it uses down leg step boosters, and it uses the 650 650, 750 base plate. So I really want to get an opportunity to test them back to back, but I don't think that's going to be possible. Um, Not right now. At least not until I get I can get my truck going. But not only that, I do need I do need to save up a little bit of money. I think Dyno. Last time I got Dyno, I think it was $80 for 3 runs. So it would be $80. I'd make like a run, like with 3 runs, and then I need to spend another $80, and then I have to switch my carburetor and then jump back on the dyno. Um, I don't know. Maybe I'll make a video on it. I mean, I did last time, so I'll probably make a video on it when I do decide to do it, because I do want to do real life carburetor to carburetor testing, because I know people like Richard Holdner, they do like a lot of engine testing, but he does a lot of like it's not apples to apples, and that's what he says too. He'll take two very similar engines, really close engines, and he'll run the two sets of data, and you can see the differences, and you get the general idea of what he's trying to tell you. But the issue is that when you don't do an apples to apples, there are too many things that can change the curve. They can produce more power, produce less power, cause you to lose power. And for a lot of us, we're splitting hairs. We're talking about 1 or 2 horsepower. Pretty much, Richard Holner says, yeah, you're probably going to lose like a few horsepower here and there, but this is the general idea, which it does make sense. But you really want to see something that's streetable, something that you would probably build yourself, put it out on the street yourself, and then see what the difference. If I have a street engine making this much power, and you go from this to this, what am I expecting? What gains am I going to be doing? So ideally, I want to get the 575. I want to get that built, good to go, and then I want to run the 650 alcohol, and then I want to run I have, or I can build the 850. But I'm not sure about that one. That one's gonna need some work. I've got to Dremel. Actually, I could probably do that. No, I don't have any. I don't have any cutting wheels. I was gonna cut the choke horn off the 850, but I can't. I'll just do it with the grinder later. But yeah, so I have the 850. So you can go for a big displacement engine with a lot of cubes. You can get the 850, install annular boosters on it, install a 750 base plate on it, and it'll flow about 830 CFM, but then you're going to have resistance along the edge of the base plate. So you really want to get an 850 base plate, or the better idea is to get a 750 and install an 850 base plate, which flows, I believe, it's the same specs as a 950 HP. 950 HP like carburetor. It doesn't exactly flow 950 CFM, but it's called the 950 HP. That one flows about 830. So give or take, it depends on like the booster design and stuff. Whether it has a choke. Well, the HP doesn't have a choke horn. It's kind of radius, kind of like this. So yeah, I do want to get my hands on a 950. I hear it's a really, really good carburetor, because it responds like a 750, but it flows like an 850. So that's a really good carburetor to have available. But I mean, they're expensive, and I honestly, I don't make enough power to require 830 CFMs. You need to. I think the 650 is good up to like 400 horsepower, as far as I know. Maybe even more than that. Maybe 450 horsepower. After that, you want to go to a 750. So you figure all these engines, all these small block Chevys, the Dodge, the Mopar, the Fords, and they're running the 750 carburetors, but their engines are only making 200 of the wheels, maybe 250 of the wheels, and you're running a 750 carburetor. It just doesn't make any sense. Even if it's a Stroker 302 making 250 horsepower, maybe 300 horsepower, the 750 is still too big. Not too big in like it's not going to run. It's too big in the sense that you're not utilizing those secondaries like you would like to. So as soon as you start jetting up the secondaries, like for example, all the stock carburetors that I know, they're either square, like for example 65 in the front, 65 in the back, or they're staggered, so you've got 65 back, and then there's some that are like have a really dirty, like 68 in the front, 72 in the back. um, very like for fairly stock mild engines that don't rev that high, there's very little reason to have such a high jet in the back. And the only way you're going to know is if you attach an AFR. So you tune your primary circuit, you get your transition on dialed in, you get your main jets dialed in, you get all of it dialed in, and then your power valve, and then you move on to the secondaries. When you move on to the secondaries, that's really where you're going to see how much air your engine really needs, how much air it's really going to suck in. So if you have a 750 and you have your wideband on there and you floor it and you make your whole run and you have a stock cam, stock engine doesn't really rev or doesn't like to rev after 5,000, you're not really utilizing the secondaries. Your carburetor, your AFR, is going to read that you are too rich because the engine's not sucking in enough air. What I do notice is that you end up taking advantage of it. Any cam that you install on an LS, whether it's Brian Tooley Stage 1 truck cam, whether it's Sloppy Stage 2, they're all going to change your curve. So a regular truck cam kind of goes up, plateaus, and then tapers off. As soon as you install any LS cam at all, it'll come up, plateau, and then drop off. You basically, any cam that you install in your engine, you're going to gain 50 horsepower. But aside from gaining the 50 horsepower, you're going to gain the additional airflow in the top 3,000 RPMs, which is where your secondaries come in. And that's when you're going to have to go ahead and jet up. Your primaries are hardly going to see any change because you're really only using your primaries when you're driving around, and then your secondaries start feeding all the cylinders when you're at wide open throttle. So when you're at wide open throttle and your engine is fairly mild stock, the secondaries aren't really going to be sucking a lot of air, and you're actually going to have to jet down. So when I was running a 600 on my truck, 600 with shorty headers without a spacer, I was running 65 in the front, 58 in the back. After I installed a 2-inch carb spacer and long tube headers, that changed to 68 in the front to 65 or 63 in the back. So all that, the spacer and the headers really opened up the breathing room for especially in the secondaries. It really woke it up. But then after you install a cam, it's really going to shake things up in terms of how I'm going to tune the carburetor. And tuning a carburetor with a cam, when you have a fairly radical cam, is actually pretty difficult. Not difficult in a sense that like it's hard to do, but it's harder to rely on your AFR gauge the more radical cam that you have. You really have to do a lot of A/B testing. Does it and do like a lot of test hits at a track, because when you have a really radical cam, you are, especially at the lower RPMs, your engine is kind of like shooting, it's like misfiring, but like when it's loping, it's like kind of misfiring, So it's extra fuel, dumping extra air in the exhaust, and your AFR gauge kind of gets out of whack. So when your AFR gauge gets out of whack, you're trying to tune, let's say you're trying to tune a lean spot, but it's not actually a lean spot, it's a miss. So then you try to add more fuel, and your AFR says that it's running good, but you're actually over fueling, and you won't really know unless you actually run it down the strip and get your ETs, get your mile per hour. And then after that, you can jet up 2 sizes or jet down 2 sizes, and whatever makes your car faster, that's where you're supposed to be. The AFR gauge starts working again probably around after 3,000, maybe 2,500 RPMs, because you're pushing a lot more exhaust. Your misfires are getting significantly less. So your AFR readings become a little bit more valuable as RPM goes up. But for cruising, daily driving on a really low cam, the AFR gauge is not useless, but it doesn't help you like you would really want to. which is another fairly conservative, because unless you're really like racing it, you don't need anything more than a stage one, maybe a stage two. But at stage two, you start having to do a couple of radical changes to your carburetor. So I try to stay to stage one, because the stage one, all it does is it just unclogs your motor, right? It unclogs the power band of any motor. So you get a stage one cam, and basically, if the stock cam is an economy cam and it kind of just does this, when you install the any aftermarket cam, even the stage one, it's going to fix all the little issues that are with the stock cam, and your power curve is going to go way up regardless of what cam it is. The more radical cam, stage two, stage three, it'll gain you like 10, 15, 20 horsepower on the top end, but you're going to lose that drivability. You're going to lose, you're going to gain the lope, which is what a lot of people really go for. They really like to make their engine sound very aggressive, lopey, very raspy. But if you want something a little bit more mild, something a little bit more easier to drive on the street, then most people don't need anything more than a stage one, because a stage one, all it does is the power curve on a stock motor. It doesn't matter if it's a 318, a 350, a 302. It's going to correct the power curve, provided that that it matches the set of heads that you have. On older engines, head decision is actually pretty vital, because a lot of heads don't like big camshafts because they don't fit in the spring. So you have to install taller springs, different valve train, and so you can only do so much with the head, right? So like the standard castings that come in the factory 302s are not very good. The castings on the stock Mopar heads, those are absolutely garbage. And the small block Chevy heads, they're good, but they're not as good as an LS head, which probably has ever created. Even the Gen 3 stuff, I don't really mess with a lot of Gen 4 stuff, because the rec port, they say that the rec ports make like 30 more horsepower, right? But they're significantly more expensive. So if you go through and um, you get yourself a port, let's say 6.0 versus an LQ4 6.0, you're going to be paying 2 or 3 times as much for 30 horsepower. So it's $2,000 or $3,000, or yeah, $1,000 or $2,000 more for 30 horsepower. Is it worth it? Or if you can just get an LQ4, maybe an LQ9 at best, and get yourself a turbo kit, or maybe get yourself some long tube headers, a cam, an intake. For $2,000, you can do a lot of stuff to your engine. Especially even here in California, engines are really expensive, or LS engines are really expensive in California. So you can get a 6.0 for probably around $1,500 to $1,800 from a dismantler, because you can't find them at the junkyards, because they don't even hit the junkyards. They will strip the vans that come with the 6.0s, the trucks that come with the 6.0. They will pull the motor out and crush the truck before they ever let it hit let it hit the junkyard. So getting your hands on a 6.0 is actually really difficult here in California, which is why I never really looked for one, because I didn't really want to spend $1,800 on a 6.0. I just went to the junkyard, went on a day that was half off or 40% off or whatever, and I ended up just picking up a 5.3 out the door with taxes and my environmental fees, all the injectors and everything. It was about $350. So I mean, I can fully build a 5.3 for the cost that it would cost me to actually get my hands on a 6.0. But I also didn't really need the extra displacement. I am on a Toyota R150 manual trans, and as far as I know, that's the weak spot of my truck. If anything's gonna break, it's gonna be one of two things. It's either gonna be the Ford 8.8 that's in the back of my truck, or the R150 that's driving the wheels. So one of those two is gonna break. That's why I'm really scared to go any bigger than a 5.3, because you got to figure that the Toyota R150 was designed for a motor that made about 110 horsepower to the wheels. My truck makes, last time I got it dynoed was 245 to the wheels on 35 tires. So you can imagine the stress that transmission is going under when I'm putting almost 250 to the wheels. and especially if I'm going off-roading. But also the 48.8s are really stout rear end. They say that they're good for 300 horsepower, but I'm pretty sure they're good for way more than that. And the reason I say that is because I tow a lot. I tow like a lot of things I shouldn't be towing with my truck, and it does. I max out the 3's torque capability, um, and I feel like I've pulled several 1,000-pound trailers. Like the trailer itself is about 1,500 to 2,000 pounds, and then like a 2 or 3,000 pound vehicle on top. So that's 5,000 pounds. That's way beyond um, what you would regularly be towing with like an Explorer. But then again, the F-150s also use an 8.8. So I mean, the F-150 is probably towing somewhere close to what I tow. So I know the 8.8 can handle. So it's really more the R150 that I'm about. But I did re-gear the 8.8 to 456. So if something's gonna break, it's either gonna be the gear set, the 456 gear set, because the smaller the higher number, the higher numerical gear set, the easier they are to break. So if anything, I'd much rather want the diff to break than the tranny, because I don't want to look for another tranny. Gears I can get online all day long. Trannies are getting really, really hard to find. I could, if it does break, I'm thinking about sending it out to Maryland Crawler to have it built. I don't know how much stronger they make them, but I mean, people have been running small block Chevys in front of the R150s for a really long time. That was like the go-to swap. That one and the 302 have both been very popular engines to be running in front of R150, which is what I got in my truck. But like I said, the most horsepower that the R150 was seeing in factory trim was behind the 5VZ in the late 90s, and the 5VZ, even the manual transmission one. Let's see, the manual transmission one probably makes 250 to the crank, or I'm not the manual transmission. The supercharged version makes about 500 and or 500, 250 to the crank. It's like a 50, it's like a 50 horsepower boost or something. And then the 5EZ in stock trim, it's like 180 or 200 horsepower. It's some they're not very powerful engines, and the gas mileage isn't that great, but it's like the best you got on the Toyota trucks that will pretty much just bolt up to whatever you got. So when I was deciding whether I should build an LS swapped truck or if I should just build up my Toyota, after I ran the numbers and figured out what I needed to do, I was like, I'm gonna have way more room and way more capacity, and I'm gonna have way more room to grow as well if I build up an older full-size truck than it is if I try to just build up a Toyota pickup, which I will build eventually. I do have a 4Runner that I want to swap over to half-ton axles. Like it's got the IFS in the front, and then it's got the Toyota 8-inch I think in the back, which is a pretty good differential. Um, in standard use, you're really never going to break it or damage it. But I do want to get like a Dana 44 in the front, and then maybe like a 48.8 in the back, just like I have in my truck right now. So if anything, I'll end up pulling the axles out of my truck and install them on the Toyota, and then I'll get 1 ton axles for my truck. But then I'm gonna have to reinforce the front. So I'm getting really off topic right now, but I have so many things lined up to do. But work has been absolutely crazy on my end. COVID seems to have slowed down a lot of people. But for me, and because I do work in construction, so I've been pretty much nonstop, super busy with work. And between doing all the Daytona sensors videos, um, and between doing trying to fix my truck and getting all the carb issues, and doing other swaps, we're doing the swap on my brother's on his Scout. So the Scout's going to be really nice. We just picked up a Dana 30 for that one, and I have my extra 48.8 that's going to go in the back. So he's never going to really off-road it, and it's going to be a 4.8. So he's never going to break either of those things. It's going to be ran with a 700R4 automatic transmission and an MP241, I believe. manual shift transfer case. So those are both those are those are two projects that we've got going on right now simultaneously. My truck and then the Scout. Then I've got work, and then I mentioned this in a previous video, but I bought a house. So we're in the studio of my new house, and it's got a barn in the back. And I did a video on the concrete that I poured in the back, and then I poured another section of concrete today. So I just need to pour, let's see, 1, 2, 3 more sections, 4 sections, 5, 6, 7, 8 sections. I do really small sections. So as of right now, I've poured about 10 yards of concrete, which it's like a 25 by 25 square. Oh, what's going on, Infamous Nova? Long time no see. So it's like a 25 by 25 square that I pretty much poured. I'm pretty sure I'm doing the math right, but on the calculator that I put in, it's about 10 and a half yards of concrete that I've poured so far. So I need at least another 15 or 20 yards to pour on the other side of the on the rest of the barn. After that, I gotta also pour the footings so I can install a lift. Despite your videos, I just picked up a to replace my 6010. Well, I mean, you make it sound like I don't want you to buy them. You make it sound like I'm like hating on the 6014. In reality, I don't hate the 6014. I have a 6014 right here. I have one right there. I don't hate. I don't try to discourage people from buying the 6014 simply because I've had problems with them. Because there's, as much as I've had problems with them, there's been just as much or more people that have not had problems with them, and I'm a little envious that that they've been able to make it work for them. But unfortunately, I've had really bad luck with the 6014s, and even in the, if you guys jump on my Instagram and look back-to-back comparison between the 6014 and the Daytona Sensors box, no, you presented good reasons not to, but it's convenient for me. If I wish, I would have gone a different route. Yeah, no kidding. I totally get it. But I know if you guys check on the Instagram, so I think three or 4 posts back, I've got the 4.8 running on the MSD 6014. If you turn up the volume and listen to it, the engine runs, but it doesn't run well. It like hesitates. It's got like, it's like bumping. Pop, 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 pop. You can hear it popping. Then on the following post that I put, I have the Daytona Sensors box, and then you start that up and it's just purring. It sounds good. So there's obviously something wrong with my box. But the 6014, well, I mean, if you already had a 6010 and you were going to replace the 6010, they have that adapter harness for Daytona that'll go from 6010 to SSLS, and that's $75, I think. And then you've got the actual box, which is like $315. So for the same cost as a 6014, you can have a Daytona box, and it would have worked out. Yeah, it would have worked out because you would have been able to reuse the same harness. You wouldn't have to pull it out like I did, which I should have ordered the conversion harness. When you use a conversion harness on a 6014 harness, you've got to repin the harness so that way because it's set up for a 6010, the adapter harness is set up for a 6010 or 6012. So if you repin it you have to repin it to make it work on a 6014 harness, and it's only a couple wires they've got to move around, like the power wire, the ground wire, and then I think the cam sensors. Those have to be moved around. But if I would have known that, I wouldn't have ripped out my entire thing. Stepped away, what I miss? We're just talking about MSD versus Daytona sensors right now. Um, the install, because actually I have it right here. Uh, this is the harness. This is the 6014 harness that truck. So it's held up for about 2 years, almost 2 years. So it's got like overspray from when I painted my truck. The wires are still in good shape. They're not frayed. The sheathing's in good shape. It hasn't been crumbling, and that's even with oil. Like especially, let's see, where's the cam sensor plug? Oh, it's gonna be on the. It came with a sub harness, but like the harness is the most impressive part of the 6014 because it's actually really well done. I don't know if the harness is USA made or even USA assembled, but I mean they use factory Delphi plugs. My box came with the USB drive. What is that for? The USB drive is for tuning, basically. Uh, the USB has the MSD View software. So you take that USB and you plug it. Actually, I have one over here. Give me 1 sec. Let me grab it so I can show you guys. So I have is this the USB you're talking about? One of these? I tried. I think it's only like 250 megabytes. So it's actually, oh no, 2 gigabytes. It says. Really, 2 gigabytes? No, I don't think it's 2 gigabytes because I put it in my computer and I wasn't able to load anything on it. But yeah, the only thing this thing has is the MSD View software, which you don't even really need this because you can just pull the software. You can get it directly off the website, and the one that's on the website is up. It's a lot more updated than the one that comes on the USB drive. These are pretty outdated. So, um, yeah, it's just the MSD View software. You don't actually need it for tuning. You don't even need to install it on your computer if you don't really want to. But if you want the most updated software, just jump on the MSD website, grab the MSD View software, and then that'll be your best bet. It'll be the easiest thing you can do to set your thing up. For me, I'm running it on this laptop, the MSD View software, but my laptop is like super slow. I wasn't even able to pull up the live stream right now to look at your guys' comments. So I put the phone in front of my face. I hope it doesn't sound like I'm like chewing on something or eating something. Um, but um, but yeah, I have pretty bad internet, like a bad internet connection here at my new house, just because I'm so far away from the Wi-Fi. Because I'm in the garage outside, and the garage is separate from the house. So I'm like over 100 feet away from the wireless router, so my internet's a little crummy. But yeah, your audio is good. Okay, well that makes me feel a little bit better if my audio is good. The other issue is that there's kind of like an echo in here. I haven't noticed it as much since I've been filling up this room with a bunch of junk on it. But yeah, yeah. So anyway, um, I need a drive shaft so I can start the car and hear it run. Why don't you just undo your torque converter? You could just undo your torque converter and then just have the flywheel spin. I don't think it's gonna catch on anything, or at least it shouldn't, as far as I know. Don't take my word for it. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure you can undo the torque converter, and then you can have your engine spin freely, not without having to spin the front pump on the transmission, and causing you to spill out your ATF all over the floor, or worst case scenario, makes it run. Oh, come on, man. It's not even that much work. We pulled for the Scout, we went to the junkyard and we were on the search for the 700R4 MP241 combo. I think in about an hour and a half to 2 hours, we had the whole thing out. So we unbolted the drive shafts, the front and rear drive shafts. We undid the 6 bolts to undo the transfer case, and then we just undid like I want to say another 5 or 6 bolts around the bell housing, and then we pulled off like 4 bolts that hold up the torque converter cover, and I think the torque converter was either 3 bolts or 4 bolts, and that thing was done. 1, 2, 3. So I'm pretty sure you can. Actually, when you bolt up a LS to a, well, I don't know what transmission you're running. You could be running a 4L80. If it's a 4L80, then it is a little bit more difficult because the the starter's in the way, so you have to remove the starter and then take off the little plastic cover. And then depending on what kind of bolts you're running, like for example, when I was taking apart the 4.8, it had like Torx bolts instead of like standard hex bolts. So that was a huge hassle. Turbo 400 with LS bell housing. With LS bell housing. The Turbo 400, doesn't the Turbo 400 just bolt on to the LS without an LS bell housing, or is there something you got to do to make it work? Am I missing something here? Because on the, like when I did my R150, I installed a small block Chevy, like a Chevy 350 style bell housing, and then I bolted that onto the R150, and then that combo I bolted it onto the 5.3. And I think 4 bolts lined up, and then the other 2 or 3 didn't line up. But I mean, it's been holding well with 4 bolts, and I've been taking it off roading. So I'm wondering if the Turbo 400 is different. I'm not too familiar with the GM transmissions. You need an adapter for the torque converter. That's my setup. Okay, so if you use a small block Chevy bell housing, you need to run an adapter. But if you run the LS bell housing, you don't need the adapter. Is that right? Do you get good gas mileage with the Carb LS and Turbo 400? Good question. I wonder what the gas. Well, I mean the Turbo 400. What can we compare that to? Flex plate has a spacer to adapt. Yeah, I've seen the spacers, and I think it varies too on what engine. Because I think the older 6.0s had like a longer snout in the back. So what is you guys that know what's the most comparable transmission to like a Turbo 350 or Turbo 400? What is like, is it comparable to a 4L80, or is it more similar to like a 4L65, a 4L60? What do you think strength wise? The Turbo 400 bolts up to the 5.3 like normal, but the 5.3 has one of the bell housing bolts blocked off. Right, exactly. I think one of the top ones, I think 2 of the top ones are blocked off. But I know the 2 little nubs, like the locating pins, those line up with the bell housing. At least the one that I had, those lined up with the bell housing. And then on top of that, there was 2 bolts, and then below that there was 2 bolts. And I had to use Allen bolts instead of hex bolts because they wouldn't fit. The Turbo 400 is a 4L80 without overdrive. Okay, all right, that makes a lot of sense. It's no wonder people really like to use them. So it's a 3-speed. It's a 3-speed automatic without overdrive. Okay. What about the Turbo 350? Is that like an in between the 4L60 and 4L80, or is that kind of like more like a weaker transmission? I've seen people use both of them. My bell housing is SFI. Okay, there you go. You should have said that first, Nova. That makes a lot more sense. Obviously, it's designed so when your flex plate blows up, it won't cut your feet off, and it also won't cut your fuel rail. I have a big no-no on my truck. I have the fuel pressure regulator mounted on the firewall. So, and then the way my engine is located, it's a little bit farther forward. So if my flex plate or my flywheel ever blows up, it's like right in the way of my fuel rail. But I highly doubt I'm ever going to be spinning it or running it as hard to the point where I'm going to blow up I'm going to blow up the flywheel and cut the lines. In fact, on the stock 4.8s, 5.3, 6.0s on the trucks, the fuel rails run right up against the bell housing. So if you were to run stock LS fuel rails, and you're racing it and you blow up your flywheel, you're probably going to cut the stock ones too. So that's why I wasn't too worried about the putting it on the firewall. Plus, it looks a little bit cleaner and it's easier to see versus having it on the fender, or the inner fender, which gets in the way and looks kind of tacky and gets dirty, and I don't like it. Am I sacrificing a little bit of safety? Probably. But like I said, it's not a race truck. It's for off-roading, and I don't think I'm going to blow up a flywheel at 2,000 RPMs going off-roading. I'll probably blow up my clutch before I blow up the flywheel, to be honest with you. Plus, it's actually a really good flywheel for my kit. The one that goes, the swap kit to LS, from LS to R150, the flywheel is made by McLeod, I don't know, MCLEOD, I think, or LOED, I don't remember, but that's who makes the flywheel. And then it's a Luke pressure plate, and then it's an Advanced Adapters clutch disc, which I'm pretty sure like Clutch Masters makes it, or McLeod. Is that how you say it? McLeod? I'm pretty sure there's an E in there. But no, it's good. Well, while we're on the topic, oh yeah, McLeod. Okay, that makes more sense. Makes more sense. Well, we're on the topic. McLeod. Oh, good to see you, Trent. The how do you say Milodon or Milodon? Millon. Yeah, Mill. I don't know. However you spell it. I still need more piping, but I want to hear it. Oh man, when you start up your LS for the first time and get it going, it's amazing feeling, because it's like just a little bit more and we're done. You know, that feeling is always great. But yeah, moving on to my previous question. How do you guys say Milodon? I've always said Milodon because it's MIL. But I've also heard Richard Holdner specifically. He says Milodon. So which one's correct? What do you guys think? I haven't looked up any videos when they're presenting their product. I'm saying it right? You think so? Milodon? Milodon? I don't know. I'm gonna end up going to the car show. I'm gonna sound really dumb. That's the right way, is it? Can we get a unanimous decision that that's how we say it? Mr. Kevin, do you think that's correct way to say it? I should probably just look up a that's the right. No. So not Milodon? Milodon? Milodon is the way? Can we get a confirmation? I'm sure if I looked up like a SEMA, like an old SEMA video or something where they're presenting one of their, probably gonna be never heard of her. They're the ones that make like the aftermarket oil pans, high oil pumps. They make oil bypass. They make oil coolers. They make external oil cooler kits. They make double oil external oil filter kits, or oil cooler kits. They make double oil filter kits. They do a lot of stuff. A lot of their stuff that I've seen. Actually, I think they even sell water pumps as well, aluminum water pumps. But a lot of stuff that the most popular stuff from them I've seen is their oil pans. They make a lot of swap pans. They make a lot of deep sump pans. Some specialty oil pans that go through that are made for specific cars to fit oil and oil accessories. Yeah, so they've been around a really long time. I actually want to get one for my LS, so when I go off-roading, I'm gonna grab this. So when I go off-roading and I do a lot of uphill, so the engine ends up like this, you know. So all the oil kind of does this. I kind of want like something with like a trap door on the bottom that'll keep feeding the pickup when it's at an extreme angle. But when I have to go back downhill, all the oil ends up this way. So I need I need to be able to maintain the capacity down here, and also add a windage tray to prevent oil from like hitting the crank when I'm going downhill. I've gotten to the point where on certain hills going down specifically, where I begin to lose oil pressure because I'm going pretty steep, and I begin to lose oil pressure, so I have to shut the truck off, and then I've got to go down the hill with no brakes, you know. And because I don't use an electronic vacuum pump, I use a hydro boost system, so that's all driven by the engine. If the engine turns off, I don't have brakes. I mean, my brakes, even with the engine off, they still feel pretty good because of the accumulator on the hydro boost. So I still have pretty good brakes, but I do need a pretty expensive. Who needs brakes? Who needs brakes when you're running 10-second quarter miles? You need parachutes, is what you need, right? Um, but I noticed that the off-road crowd, no, well, the off-road crowd is huge, but they're all Jeeps, you know, XJs, TJs, WJs, Wranglers in general, and now the new Gladiator. The new Gladiator is really nice too. Um, but most people that are doing LS swaps are not doing LS swaps on off-road vehicles, or at least not that kind of off-road vehicle. They're doing a lot of like racing or car shows, which is not a bad thing. Or they're like putting them in their like C10s or Camaros to get rid of their 305s, to get rid of the 327s, 350s, and get to themselves a more reliable, more powerful engine that wastes less gas. But so when I go to like car shows and stuff, I usually just end up talking with a lot of car guys, not a lot of truck guys, because truck guys aren't really like cool. They're cool in their own way, but um, not as much as a car. I do want to buy a first gen or second gen Camaro sometime in the near future, but I mean, we're looking at 10 grand plus for a bare shell right now. So I'm just gonna have to keep waiting and saving, budgeting. But I mean, I won't even be able to touch it until I finish my other projects. I have that 73 Dodge Charger chilling in my backyard. I have my friend's XJs. C10 guys are cool from my experience. Yeah, I've got my friend who, it's not a C10 because I guess it's a GMC. The GMCs I think are called differently. They're trucks. I'm not too sure, but he's a GMC guy and he goes to all the C10 shows and I go with him because it's an LS. So all the guys are cool with me, and I've never had a bad experience with the C10 guy. I've also had some of my clients, they have C10s, long beds, and they've always been super chill, super easy to talk to. It's the Dodge guys that are really, really hard to talk to, especially when they find out that there's an LS under the hood. Then they really don't want to talk to me. Um, so I don't have a lot of Dodge friends, no Dodge truck friends, and no Dodge car friends because they don't really like to associate themselves with a traitorous person like me. But the Chevy guys are cool. Ford guys are really cool. Ford guys don't really care one way or another what I do because it's not a Ford vehicle with an LS, and it's not a Ford vehicle with a Dodge powertrain. So it's like whatever. So for off-road people, like people with Blazers, people with Broncos, with F-150s, with Silverados, with C10s, or K10s, I guess, and K5 Blazers, I can get along with them really, really well because we have a lot of things in common. The Ford 8.8 rear end, the LSs, you know, manual transmission, lockable hubs, the NF44s, all of that like interlocks, right? But Dodge guys, they're a little out there, man. I don't know. I'm a Dodge guy. I like Dodge. We have tons of Dodges between me and my brothers and my dad. We have probably like 15 Mopars. We have like two Challengers, the 70 Charger, the 73 Charger. We have like 4 or 5 trucks, you know, and a couple other vehicles as well. All of our work trucks are Dodge. They're all Cummins. Um, and still, it's like really hard to talk to those guys. If you did an LS swap, you're not a Dodge guy. You're an LS guy. I guess you're right. You're right. I am I am an LS guy, but I mean, it's really hard. You know, you guys know, you guys have LSs. It's really hard not to go LS. You know, I'm planning out my build on the Chargers. It's a 361 like industrial motor. My dad swapped that motor in like back in 2002. He picked it up from the junkyard thinking it was a Mopar 383. Turned out I looked up the numbers and everything later, much later, like 10 years later. And it was a Mopar 361 industrial engine from a 1962 Plymouth Polara, and which is not bad because it is a high. It's pre-smog, like smog era, so it's a high compression 361, which is decent. You know, the heads aren't any good, but we do have a set of aluminum heads on it. But to put it in perspective, we're looking at a 361 cubic inch engine, which the heads are no good because they were made in an era that required leaded fuel, so the heads have to go. None of the stock big block heads um, flow worth anything, you know. You pretty much have to get yourself a set of aluminum heads, which we did. But those aluminum heads set us back about $1,000. We got them from 440 Source, and they're not even that great, you know. After that, you've got to go ahead and set up the correct intake for it. So you got to get yourself like an Edelbrock RPM air gap and then the carburetor for it. So like you're investing all these parts anyway. Let's say 300 for the intake, 1,000 for the headers, and then you get yourself another carburetor for it. You're close to $2,000 right there. Especially if you rework the bottom end. I don't know what the pistons look like. I'm assuming they're flat top pistons, but let's assume that you just reseal the bottom end, put new heads on it, put the intake, and then call it good. You're sitting at just under $2,000. For $2,000, I can do a 5.3 swap, and all without having to do anything. I'll have more power, better gas mileage, better reliability than the Mopar 361. So like I go round and round and round and round in my head. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna build a 361. Wait, I can't. Or I mean, it's not worth it. The money to horsepower to reliability ratio isn't there. Yeah, but I don't really want to do another LS swap. Yeah, but it doesn't make sense not to do an LS swap. You know, I'm sure you guys get it. Um, so I totally get it when you say that I'm an LS guy because I've done an LS swap, but I don't know. I'm more of a anything kind of guy. You know, I I do I do like to mess with the different brands and just experiment. One thing I do hate, or a series of cars that I do like really don't like, are European cars in general. I used to work in a shop that only worked on European cars, 100% European cars only. And the engineering on that thing drove me absolutely insane. I worked there for about 6 months, and I said, these cars are made by a bunch of idiots, you know. And I did end up owning a European car later. It was a Passat, which I really did like. It was good on gas, very powerful. But I mean, they just kept breaking, you know, and parts for them were just they just weren't there. So I ended up switching to Toyota, which I wasn't a Toyota guy either. I was a Honda guy originally when I used to build and work on Hondas. And but when it was time to start buying my daily driver, assembling my fleet of cars, I ended up going with Toyota. So we've got I had a Camry until I got rear-ended, but I had my Camry, my Corolla, and I have a Toyota pickup, and I have a Toyota 4Runner, and then my other 4Runner, which I ended up selling. So I've had a lot of Toyotas as well. I tend to like the Toyotas more than the Hondas when we're talking like comparing specific models. I do tend to like the Toyotas more. So I'm not loyal to any particular brand. I really like things that just that just work. LSs just work. You do the Trinian upgrade, which you don't really need to. You don't really, if you don't want to, you don't need to do the Trinian upgrade, but it's helpful. So you do the Trinian upgrade. You make sure to replace the oil pan, the pickup O-ring, and just seal the rear main seal while you got the engine out, so you don't have any leaks. And like you're good, you've got a bulletproof motor that you don't really have to do anything. So the LS kind of like spoiled me because it's like, what's the point of swapping any other engine? There's no point in swapping in a 427, a 426, a 440, a 454, a 413, a 396. Like, there's no point when you've got when the LS can make any LS, so 4.8, 5.3, 6.0. you can make the same horsepower or more for a fraction of the cost. And I mean, a lot of people don't really get it. I will definitely find out if the LS is bulletproof. Well, you've seen the test. I'm sure you've seen the test on Richard Holdner's channel. They've run 1,000 psi on 1,000 psi, 1,000 horsepower on 4.8s, 5.3s, and 6.0s without blowing them up, and in some cases without even adding ring gap. So eventually on my particular application, I do want to go turbo, but then we jump back to my original point, which is like if I go turbo, I'm probably going to blow up the transmission, and then I'm going to need to figure out what I'm going to do with the transmission. I might convert it back to automatic and put a 4LED. I really, at this point, I have no idea what I'm going to do. Or a second truck and then put a turbo on that one. I have no idea. My life is all over the place right now. And you guys aren't helping. You guys are giving me a lot of bad ideas. But I've been modifying late model vehicles for years, but bought a C10 during quarantine. I wanted to build a 383, but was sold on the LS swap. I'm now all in the LS swap world. It does happen because my friend who actually built a 383 small block Chevy, he bought it through an online retail, like an online rebuilder, and he paid, I want to say it was about $2,900 or $3,000 for a long block. Make a 383 LS. Can't go wrong there. So he spent about $3,000 for his 383. Actually, it was a short block. No, well, I don't know. Block and heads. How about that? So then he the oil pan for it, the pickup for it. He had to buy the carb for it and headers for it. By the time it's all said and done, he was out $4,000, $4,500 into it, and because he went MSD distributor, blah blah, So he's about four almost $5,000 into the engine. Then he got it's a $700 R4 that he had rebuilt, he had rebuilt. He didn't rebuild it, but somebody rebuilt his $700 R4. So he put those things together, dropped it in. I kid you not, I don't even think that motor lasted 1,500 miles, and he spun one bearing and the other one was about to go. So he sent the engine back. The engine's been gone since October, and they're thinking maybe the beginning of January he's going to be able to get a new 383. But before he took the plunge and went 383, I said, look, dude, get yourself a 5.3, put a cam in it, and you're going to be absolutely happy. Or get yourself a 6.0, $1,800 here in California, obviously. We're not like the driveway engineer that can find them for $175. That doesn't exist over here in California, JR. Getting a $1,800 6.0, and you're going to be making more power more reliably than your 383 that came from some random person online. I've also been playing with the idea of a 383 LS, just like you were saying, Nova, because I was thinking about taking the 5.3 that I already have now, or maybe going to the junkyard. Oh, yeah, that's right. I do remember that you're in California. You did mention that as well. I've been thinking about buying the kit. I think it's like $1,200 for the stroker kit for the 5.3. But then you take into consideration that, okay, it's $1,200, then probably another $1,000 to have a machine shop go through it, bore out the engine. What is it, like 200 thousandths or something, 100 thousandths or something to get it up to a 5.7 bore, and then you're gonna need to invest $1,200 for the kit, and then gaskets and everything. So you end up the built 383 5.3 is going to run you about $2,500 to $3,000, all said and done after you buy the motor and everything. So versus getting a $300 motor, versus getting an $1,800 motor that produces almost the same amount of torque and produces almost the same amount of horsepower, but it's already done. You spend $1,800, they give you an engine and you're done. I mean, you can still do gaskets and stuff. So let's say $2,000. So 2,000. I mean, I don't know. I guess we're getting we're getting close. We're getting close. Let's say that's $1,000 difference. Let's say you can find the 6.0 in a different state for much cheaper. But I don't know. It gets really close between uh, buying a 6.0 and building a 383 in California. Um, in any other state, no brainer, just buy a 6.0. California, it depends, honestly. Especially because you can take the same stroker kit and put it in a 6.0 and 9 or 407, whatever. Um, and you're going to be making even more power, The 6.0 is about 1400 here in Texas. Yeah, it's because Texas Speed has bought them all up. They bought up all the cores. They left you guys with all the expensive ones. I've been thinking about moving out to Texas, but it's hard. I don't know anything about Texas. I wanted to go to LS Fest out in Kentucky, and I was gonna go all through the South. Um, I believe that. Yeah, I mean, you never know. I don't know what's going on out there in Texas. The only time I've ever driven through Texas is when I was actually going. I was driving to Mexico to visit my grandparents, so I drove through Arizona, I think Utah, New Mexico, and I ended up over there in Texas. Went straight down to what is the name of that port? I don't know. I passed El Paso. We have tons of people moving here from Cali. You won't be alone. It's a different lifestyle out here. Oh, I believe it. It's California is losing a ton of people. Um, but I mean, I just bought this house, but it was on my mind. I was like, should I buy a house here in California, or should I move out to Arizona or Texas? But then I remember that there's tornadoes in Texas, and I was like, well, maybe tornadoes aren't really something I want to deal with. I don't really want to hide in my basement every couple years or so. We get earthquakes over here, which is the big. But the last time an earthquake actually did damage here in California was like in the 90s, I think. Tornadoes or earthquakes? Yeah, see, earthquakes are for me because I mean here in California we get a ton, but tornadoes are kind of a thing, Being driving down the interstate and then a tornado comes up and picks you up. There's not a lot you can do. Like State Farm's not going to help you at that point until after you land. So I was planning to drive through there when I was going to go to Kentucky for LS Fest, but then I calculated gas and time off from work and everything. I was like, this is going to be a super expensive trip. We're looking at like 1,500 to 2,000 just for the like gas, hotel room, food, and everything. It was like 1,500 to 2,000, and then you have to include like the days that I would lose from work. So if I lose 2 weeks worth of work, then that's a ton of money, and money doesn't really grow on trees. And if I don't work, I can't build my stuff. So I decided not to go. But I don't know. I don't even know if they ended up canceling it or not. I have no idea. But I did want to drive my truck from California to Kentucky, but it just didn't happen. Hopefully next year. I think spring is when LS Fest West, which is in Las Vegas. This year it got canceled. I was gonna go to that one too, but this year it got canceled. So I don't know. I don't know. The situation's kind of weird. Arizona's kind of in a funny place between the regulations on and off. But I've got friends that live out there, and they let me know what's going on. But for the most part, well, we're here in California. We're in an area called the High Desert, and it's very deserted. But I've got 2.5 acres, so I have plenty of room for all kinds of projects. Right now on my list of cars to buy, I think I want to buy a 71 or 72 Plymouth Roadrunner. I want a Mopar, an A body, like a Duster, 71, 72 Duster. Or I think the first year might have been 70. I don't know, 71, 72 Duster. Get my own Challenger because the two Challengers that we have, they're both at my dad's house. So I want to get another Challenger. Second generation Charger, like a 68, 79, 70. Those are 15 grand just for a shell right now. My dad does have the 70, that he picked up last year, but that thing's a basket case. We got it for cheap, but you know it's a basket case. I do want to buy another truck. I want to buy a club cab truck, and I'm either going to go diesel swap or 6 liter with 1 ton axles and a heavy duty training like a 4L80, built 4L80. But that's also a ways away. I've also got the 72 W100, the one that I made a video on a couple months back. That one's on my list of vehicles. That one I'm at a crossroads too because the 318 that's in it, runs really really well. It starts right up. The carburetor needs a little bit of work, but it starts right up. It sounds great. It's slow and it gets bad gas mileage, but it sounds excellent and it's all original. You know, Dana 44 front, Chrysler 9 1/4 rear, um, automatic V8, power steering. I don't know if it. I think it has AC. It might have AC, but I don't know if I should drop in a 360 Magnum in there that I can get at the junkyard, or if I should go LS. You know, it's just all roads lead to LS. You know, all roads lead to LS swaps. So I don't know, but I do need to start getting some more content out on the channel. LS. Well, I know what you're gonna say, Nova. You don't even have a truck. That sounds like a restoration project. You know, you're right. It is a little bit rotted out, and I would like to actually restore it, bring it back to original condition. But it's such a meager drivetrain. You know, if probably what I'll do is I'll probably treat it as a restoration project, get it as close as I can to 100%, and then just sell it and then buy a different truck and actually go through that one and then do some modifications to it. Because stock trucks right now here in California, especially right now, I have no idea why, but off-road, anything 4x4, the price is ridiculous right now. 4x4 vehicles are so hot right now. It's crazy. Probably because of all the lockdowns and stuff and people want to go out in the wild. But 4x4s in general right now, they are just flying off the shelves. I used to be able to find Forerunners for 300, 500, at the most $800 running. Sometimes they need a blown head gasket, but last one that I bought was running for $700, and then I turned around and I sold it for 25, I think. I think the C10 movement is driving up prices on old school trucks. I want to make my Nova all-wheel drive. I'm gonna unpack both of those comments one by one. So the problem with the C10 movement is that everybody pretty much already bought up all the C10s, right? There's almost no more C10s that you can get for cheap. And then after people finished buying up the C10s, they started buying up the F100s. Now that the F100s are starting to run out, now they're starting to buy up the Dodge trucks, which is what I'm noticing because the prices are starting to climb back up because a Dodge truck is almost the exact same thing as a C10. You know, they come in the same body styles: single cab, extended cab, quad cab, and short bed, long bed, and then extended cabin chassis wheelbases. You know, so you have the same body style, same like body configuration. Styling is very similar, and most of them came with either a slant six. Well, I mean, obviously a slant six, but most of them came with the V8 power steering. You know, and so it's the front differentials on the C10s or K10s, and there's a bad twin all-wheel drive C10 called Prime. I haven't seen that one yet. The difference there's between the differences between a K10 and like a Dodge W100, they're very minuscule, right? The front differentials are both Dana 44s. In fact, they're almost the exact same Dana 44s. The rear ends change a little bit, but they're both garbage anyway. You're going to swap them out. The frame rails are almost the same width, and an LS fits in both of them. So you can see how the prices on those Dodge trucks just goes up. So I'm probably just going to fix it up enough so I can get it out of my hair, take that money, and actually put toward my other projects. So I don't know what you think about that one, Kevin. Nova. I don't know how would you describe to me what you would do to make your Nova all-wheel drive? When I think all-wheel drive, I immediately think Subaru transmission because it's very compact and it's easy to install. I don't know if that'll fit in the Nova with an LS. So my next thought would be a transmission with a transfer case, and then put a front differential, independent front suspension type of differential. I have no idea. You haven't even thought about it. Um, you're ahead of the market with your swap. You could fund a big off-road build. Um, yeah, that's true. Um, especially because these trucks aren't, they're getting popular, but they're getting popular as like lowrider trucks or lower trucks, like hot rod trucks. The the four-wheel drive versions of these trucks aren't nearly as popular yet, probably just because the 318s are just garbage, and if you can get a 360, it's still pretty garbage. Parts for them are hard to find. They're more expensive. Um, so people are like, I don't really want to mess with it. But if you got a clean one, like you're the only one on the road with one, you know. I get a lot of even though my truck isn't like the bed is rusted out, the body is like three different colors, and I still get a ton of compliments on my truck for whatever reason, you know. And it's nice, it's a nice feeling. But if I was if I was actually able to finish it or even build a second truck with a good budget to get 1-ton axles, a nice beefy transmission with transfer case, a good drive line, um, and an LS, and get it with AC and get all the creature comforts in, and maybe get like an extended cab and a short bed so I have room for like bucket seats. Uh, that would be like a good truck. Maybe switch over to a 4-link suspension instead of in the front. Keep the leafs in the back for towing, 4-link in the front for stability. And then if it's on 1-ton axles, then I could actually tow with it. You know, you can actually put it on 37s, um, get some good gears on it, and you can tow a pretty good amount because it's essentially a 2500. A 2500 truck can tow quite a bit, especially with the 6.0. Especially if it's a turbo 6.0, you can tow a lot of weight. Pair that up with hydro boost brakes like the ones that I have on my truck, and you are stopping and going no problem. Absolutely no problem. The weak link then becomes the transmission, honestly. But but yeah, I don't know. A lot of things to think about. It's always fun to plan out your builds, but then as soon as you open your checkbook, it gets really difficult to actually uh, negotiate with yourself trying to get all the money uh, out and about. But that 72 truck, it's funny because it's insured, it's got plates, I can legally drive it on the road with no problem. I've got the pink slip, I got everything, but it doesn't have brakes, and I don't want to invest in the brakes because it has front and rear drums, and I don't want to invest in a front axle to convert it to discs, or a rear axle for that matter, because I don't want to put money into it. But I also don't want to leave it drum. So what do I do? You know, if I leave it as a restoration, then yeah, I could just replace the wheel cylinders, replace the master cylinder, replace the booster, maybe replace the proportion valve if it's actually bad, and then get it back on the road. Um, Maybe give it like a quick paint job or something, or actually tune up the motor, maybe power wash everything, and then sell it for 2-3 grand. You know, then I take those 2-3 grand and buy another one that I'm actually gonna be able to do a swap on. I could actually go. Actually, I don't even have to buy the whole truck. I have a extended cab. Oh no, I have a single cab long bed frame. Let's see if it drum, and you're not adding a bunch of horsepower. You're right, actually. Um, I have an extra 318 4-barrel intake that we can just throw on. So we've got the intake. I've got this 600 carburetor that I could just throw together and install it. And then I've got a set of shorty headers that we can just throw in there because the stock exhaust manifolds are cracked. And then I'm pretty much done. You fix the brakes, and then I can just sell it for 2-3 grand. And then I actually have a chassis that I bought. It was a parts truck. I took the cab and I gave it to my friend because the plan is to buy um, an extended cab body, put it on the extended cab on the long bed frame, and then put a short bed on it. Then because it's a 2-wheel drive, I can just cut off the entire 2-wheel drive suspension and then buy a 4-link kit get a Dana 60 for the front, and then I'm good to go there. You know what I mean? So my intentions are there. It's just I'm missing a little bit of dinero, and without dinero, I won't be able to actually accomplish a lot of these things. But for right now, I can dream, and it's always fun to plan it with you guys. So that's always good. If I can't do that, maybe I'll help Nova build a an all-wheel drive Nova. I don't know how he plans to do it. Maybe Skyline Driveline or something like out of a R34. But the front suspension is what kind of kills it. There's not enough room for really for an axle. You need to get like what would you do? Plus all-wheel drive for drag racing and I haven't. I mean, I've seen obviously like R35s and the Stealth. What do they call those things? The Eagle Talons, the all-wheel drive Eagle Talons, the all-wheel drive Eclipses, Subarus, Evos. Like those get really good times in the quarter mile. But I mean, it's nothing you can't do with the two-wheel drive, honestly. If you get big enough tires, you gear correctly, and you set up your launch correctly, like you should be able to get the same time or faster than a comparable all-wheel drive vehicle. But where all-wheel drive vehicles do really well is on street races, like unprepped roads, back roads, freeways. They do really well there because they don't need the big tires. They don't need the fancy suspension. They don't need to prep the road. They just need to grip and go. And that's where they kind of blow off the doors off anybody with like a classic. An SCI transmission would be good for an all-wheel drive stop since it's from factory. It's rear-wheel drive biased. That's true. And then there's some that have like that little dial in the middle. But the issue with the Subaru Trans, so let's see. I'm going to grab 2 metering blocks to illustrate my point. So this is the engine, right? And then this is a Subaru transmission. So the way they're set up is that Subarus have their tires like really far back. So they're like over here, right? Oh, actually you can't see. Let me move this. Okay. So Subarus have their tires like over here. So their axles actually come out of the side of the transmission like this. So if you remove this and instead of taking the Boxer and you put an LS and you go that way, you keep the transmission the same, the transmission's kind of centered a little bit forward. It's like biased to the front. And if you try to kick it to the back to make more room for the LS, you're going to wreck the angle for your CV shafts. So Subaru transmissions are actually really difficult to use in swaps unless the whole car is situated to accept the Subaru driveline. And the reason I know all that is because, yeah, you're right. I used to own an STI, so I'm familiar with that. I forgot about that. Yeah. I was actually planning an all-wheel drive build when I was into Hondas, and I was pretty hardcore in the Honda game, but I had a 1993 Honda Prelude or Prelude, however you want to say it. There we go with words again. I had a 1993 Honda Prelude, and it had a 2.2 liter, probably made about 200 horsepower, and I really wanted to make it all-wheel drive. So I wanted to take like an S2000 engine, like the 2.2 or the 2 liter that makes about 240 horsepower, slap that onto a Subaru tranny, and then make it all-wheel drive. Probably machine the hubs to accept the drive shafts up in the front. But whenever I tried to set up the math and the drive angles, the transmission was always set too far back. And if I was to move the transmission forward, I wouldn't have enough room in the nose. I'd have to cut out or run no hood, basically, and then push the radiator to the front or something. And it just didn't work out. All-wheel drive swaps are just really, really difficult. Obviously, an all-wheel drive swap would be super easy in a truck. So if you wanted to do an all-wheel drive swap, it would be fine. Check out all-wheel drive Cutlass channel. Pretty sick. Oh, hey, what's going on, Jody? Good to see you, buddy. all-wheel drive Cutlass. That actually sounds pretty interesting. I'm actually, after I finish the stream, I'm probably gonna go look it up. What you could also do, I've seen people use the independent front suspension off of like small trucks, and they just basically redo the cross member and tuck it as far up as they can. And then I think they just modify the oil pan at best, and then now um, you can align your suspension to your wheels, and then you just have to dangle the motor a little bit up or down or different oil pan or whatever. So you can use those, and then you can just get the whatever offset for your the differential you need to match your transmission. But there's not a lot of all-wheel drive transmissions that you can really mess with. And then if you stick like a traditional transmission into 4 high, it doesn't really work that well um, for racing. Um, so so there's that. All-wheel drive stops are complicated for sure. So I don't know. You let me know, Nova, when you start on it. I'll check it out. Sounds difficult, but I guess all-wheel drive Cutlass. I guess there's something going on there. What's really cool to see that I've noticed is that used to be a really big trend with like donks and stuff, where they would take the trucks or the cars like a Cutlass and Impala, whatever, um, El Camino. They would pull it off their frame and they would stick it on like an S10 frame, a C10 frame, a trimmed down frame of anything, and then it's a lifted car, and then you can run your 24s, you can run your 26s, you can run your Daytons with all the ground clearance that you need. And then that way you could also run a front differential if you wanted it to be 4-wheel drive as well. This guy used a Trailblazer SS frame and running gear. Okay, see, exactly. So I'm gonna check that out right now. So yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. That a lot of people, that was a big thing back in the day, because there was one over by my old house where where they actually did that. They took the body and they took the frame off of a truck and they would slip it under the car and then just hook everything up. And I mean, it works. You know, you get the luxury comfort of a classy car with the drivability of a truck. You know, you don't have to worry about potholes. You don't have to worry about parking stops. You just run over them. Um, I don't think I personally do it, but I can understand why other people would do it. But it's kind of not my thing. But I'm getting curious, so I do want to see what a all-wheel drive Cutlass is doing. That'd be pretty interesting. What other YouTubers do you guys watch in your free time? I'm always looking for new people to watch. So like I watch all the basics that everybody else watches, right? So I watch like Uncle Tony's Garage, the Driveway Engineer, Richard Holdener. Those are all like the basic standards. I also watch Driving for Answers. That's a good YouTuber as well. Who else do I watch? B is for Build sometimes. Dirt Lifestyle is actually really fun. Bleep and Jeep. But for the most part, those are like the only car. I don't watch like Cletus McFarlane. I don't watch, not because I don't like them, but they don't really post anything that I like look for, that I enjoy. So I don't watch them. I haven't found, like, very few and far between videos. Like when they bought their racetrack, I watched that. That was cool. But I wonder what other shows there are that I can keep track of, because sometimes I'm in the line, like especially right now, I'm on the drive-through line and I've got nothing to do except watch YouTube, because I can't film while I'm driving and I can't really do anything while I'm driving. So I turn on YouTube, but after I watch like the 3-4 videos that are on my list, there's like nothing else to do. So if you guys have some suggestions, I'd love to hear them. So maybe I can get a little bit of watch time in there. I'm gonna get the name of the YouTube channel I've been watching. BRB. Sounds good, Kevin. I randomly type stuff in. A lot of G body and C10 things, since that's the type of vehicles I got. You know what? I follow what is his name? Beater Old's Garage. So I'm watching his stuff, and then there's this other dude. I don't remember his name, but he has a C10 as well. Um, these are some big fat jets, man, huge. Um, yeah. So I've watched oh, yeah, Beater Old's. Um, oh, what's his name? Thunderhead 289. I watch him. But I don't watch a lot of G body stuff because it's, to me it's a little boring. Because there's nothing too innovative on the G body platform. I used to watch a lot of G body platform stuff, but I've kind of seen it all. Every once in a while, I'll look at a suspension video where they do ladder bars or four link. But I mean, Boosted Lifestyle has a 8 turbo Mustang going on. I think I saw a preview of something like that. I saw it somewhere. Um, yeah, that's out there. That's pretty out there. Considering I've used to have several. I've had a 2001 GT. I've had a 2003 GT. The first one was a manual. The second one was on an automatic. I've had a 76 Mustang 2. That was a fun car. I ended up selling it because I didn't really want to spend the money to build it. It was all stock, 302 C4, all original. But it was in California. 76 is a smog year, so I didn't want anything that was smog related. So I got rid of it. And then right now the only Mustang that we have is a 73 Mach 1, all original with the 351 Cleveland. And that one is super slow. I just drove it like last week after I put a new carburetor. Well, I didn't put a new carburetor. I rebuilt the carburetor that was on it, which was a Demon 650. And I rebuilt the carburetor on it, threw it on, and it is slow. Coverman 66. He does how-to videos, but overall entertaining to watch. Coverman 66. I'll look at that up as soon as I end the stream. That sounds fun. I'm gonna have a little bit of things to watch. Usually, when have free time, I'm either listening to a lot of different how-to videos, or people installing four-link kits in the back of their cars, or four-link kits in the front of their trucks. What people are doing with their suspension. I'm always trying to learn new things. Vice Grip Garage. I watched actually Vice Grip Garage, and then what's the name of that other dude? Uh, the guy, what's his name? He's super funny. Well, there's two of them. There's two of them that are super funny. It's the one that I referenced in my re-arcing leaf spring video. The name's escaping me, but him. He's a Canadian. That guy. And then there's another guy. Oh, it's this guy who does like tool tests. He has like this video on where he like takes apart like the harbor. Oh yeah, zip ties and bias pliers. That's his name. Yeah, him. And then I watched this other guy who does like where he puts like not Project Farm, the one where he puts like this other. Well, I watched Project Farm too, but he takes like the Makita or like a Milwaukee impact and like a Harbor Freight impact, and he sticks them together, and blows them up. And he said, let's see, he also does. He takes apart the tools and goes through like how good the Chinese quality is. Always talking about how things cheat and shoot. One of you guys tell me, who is this guy? I forgot his name. Somebody tell me. But him, he's a super funny guy. I like watching his videos too. Those videos I just kind of watch for fun, guilty pleasures, if you will. But super fun videos. The what else we got? There's a couple other guys out there. What's his name? Too cheap to smoke. Too cheap to smoke. I don't think I've heard of that one. I'm gonna have to look that one up too. So we've got Coverman 66 and Too Cheap to Smoke. Either of those guys do. Um, but yeah, I should probably start closing up the stream just because I've been on this for like 2 hours. My throat's starting to hurt. Believe it or not, this room is like super cold because this is the outside garage. There's no AC and there's no heater whatsoever, and the windows have a draft. So it gets really, really cold in here. It's probably like in the 50s because outside it's about 40 something degrees. In here it's like 50 degrees because there's no heater, so I'm kind of freezing. So I'm probably gonna log off. If you guys already know, if you guys ever want to reach out to me, you guys can reach out to me on Instagram, the Night Wrencher. Any questions? I'm always down to help. I think I've talked to Nova a couple times. I'm positive I talked to Nova on Instagram a couple times. Kevin, if you want to chat, hit me up on Instagram. All you guys, I'm probably gonna go ahead and log off. I'll see you guys next week if you want to drop in for next Sunday's live stream. So it was good to see you, fellas. DD Speed Shop, about it for me, what I watch. Thanks a bunch, guys. I will see you guys all later.